let's get into it. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see exactly how a real-world web application gets built, from start to finish. We're not just talking theory here. We're actually going to build a working task manager from the ground up.
I mean, think about it. You use apps like this every single day, right? For notes, reminders, your shopping list. But have you ever really stopped to wonder what's going on behind the scenes? How does it remember your stuff and not get it mixed up with someone else's? Well, that's exactly what we're about to find out.
So let's dive in. We're going to follow the entire journey, starting with literally a blank folder on a computer and ending with a live, working website that you could share with anyone in the world.
So what are we building? Our project is a classic, but it's also an incredibly useful tool, a task manager. The goal here is simple. We want an app where users can sign up, create their own to-do lists, manage their tasks, and, of course, mark them as complete, all from a web browser. To pull this off, we're going to need a few key tools. Think of this as our workshop. The main engine, the star of the show, is the Django Framework. It's going to handle all the heavy lifting in the background. That's our backend. For the part you actually see and click on, the user interface, we'll use standard HTML and CSS. All our data? It's going to get stored in a simple SQLite database. And then at the very end, we'll push the whole thing to a live web host. You know, every great construction project starts with a solid blueprint, and it's the exact same idea in software. Before we can write a single line of logic, we have to define the structure of our data. Why? Because a good blueprint makes sure that everything we build on top of it is strong, consistent, and reliable. In the world of Django, this blueprint is called a model.
So what is a Django model, really? It's simply a Python class that lays out exactly what kind of information we need to store. It tells us what the fields are, what kind of data they hold, and any rules they have to follow. It becomes the one single source of truth for our entire application. Everything else we build is going to rely on this foundation.
For our task manager, the blueprint is actually really straightforward. Every single task in our database just needs to know three basic things. First, who does this task belong to? Second, what is the task itself? The title. And third, what's its status? Is it still pending or is it done? This simple little class defines that entire structure.
Okay, so once we have that blueprint, we need to actually build the database from it. And Django makes this a really cool two-step process. First, we run a command called make migrations. This tells Django to look at our models and create a plan, a special file with all the instructions needed to build the database. Then we run migrate. That command takes the plan and executes it, building the actual tables. It's a brilliant system for keeping your code and your database perfectly in sync.
All right, we have a database. It's ready and waiting to store our tasks. But how do we actually do things with them? Create new tasks, update them, delete them. That's where the logic comes in. And now we get to meet the construction crew of our app, Django's views. What's really cool about this slide is how it maps everything out. In programming, you're going to hear this acronym all the time, CRUD. It stands for create, read, update, and delete. It's the four basic things you can do with data. And for each one of these actions, we write a specific Python function, a view, to handle all the logic. To really get this, let's just follow one single request from the very beginning to the very end. So picture this. You're on the website, you've just typed in your new task, and you click that Add Task button. What happens next? Well, that click sends a request to a specific web address, and Django's URL router, it acts just like a traffic cop. It looks at the URL of the request and knows exactly which function is supposed to handle it. In our case, it directs that request straight to our Add Task view. And here is where the magic happens. The Add Task function takes over. It grabs the info you submitted, it uses our task model as the blueprint, and it creates a brand new record in the database. Just like that, your new task is saved and sound.
So far, pretty much everything we've talked about has been happening behind the scenes, in our Python code and in the database. But how does the user actually see their list of tasks? Well, for that, we need to build the front-facing part of our app, the templates.
This is a great way to think about it. If the models are our blueprint and the views are the construction crew, then the templates are the finished house. They're the paint, the windows, the doors. They're the HTML files that take our data and arrange it into a visual layout that the user can actually see and interact with. And this little snippet of code shows you just how powerful this is.
Our home view goes and gets all the tasks from the database. Then the template uses this simple loop. See that @4task in tasks? It just goes through each task one by one, prints out its title, and then does a quick check to see if it should say completed or pending. It's an amazing way to build dynamic web pages.
Now, let's be honest, a task manager isn't very useful if everyone can see everybody else's to-do list. That would be chaos. We absolutely need a way to manage users and make sure their data stays private and secure. And this is where authentication comes into play. Luckily, Django has a powerful built-in system for this. We can easily set up rules so an anonymous user, someone just visiting the site, they can only see the login and registration pages. But the moment a user logs in, the system knows who they are. Our views can then filter the database to make sure they only see the tasks that belong to them. This is a critical feature that keeps everyone's data separate and safe. Okay, at this point, we have a fully functional web app. It's running great on our own computer. But the whole point is to share it with the world, right? So the final crucial step is deployment. We can break this whole process down into a simple launch sequence. Think of it like a 3-step countdown. First, we prepare our files, gathering up things like our style sheets. Second, we push all of our code to a repository on GitHub, which acts as the central source of truth for our project. And finally, step 3, we connect that repository to a hosting service. That service then takes our code and runs it on a live web server for everyone to access. So let's just take a breath and recap what we've actually done here. We've walked through the entire Django model view template workflow. We've handled user accounts and security. We've performed all the core database operations, CRUD. And we've taken a project from our local machine to a live website using professional tools like Git and GitHub. That is the full stack developer journey right there. Here's the thing to remember. What you just saw wasn't just the recipe for a to-do list app. It's the fundamental blueprint for almost any data-driven web application you can possibly imagine. The same core principles apply whether you're building a blog, an e-commerce store, or the next big social network. So the only real question left is, now that you've seen the blueprint, what are you going to build next?